All right. So excited about another show today. We're filming this a couple days before Christmas 2025. And you start thinking about the folks that you can't wait to have conversations with. And today's guest is going to be so fun. So many similarities in our lives. A gentleman lives in Canada now, but came from San Francisco and has 1,000 podcast episodes, over 1,000 podcast episodes, and we're going to talk today. I don't know all the things we're going to talk about today. All I'm going to say is you are in. Oh my gosh, for a treat. We're going to, I think about living boldly with purpose, and I think about what does it mean to move forward. And I've now authored. I think I've done 4 books, working on my 5th book. But oh my gosh, our guest today is like 20 some books, and people are reading them and people are listening to him. And we just talked about, I did a show yesterday just on AI with a guy named Kim Cox, and it was a good show. You're going to go want to watch it and go back. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about living boldly. We're going to talk about what it means to change your life. And I can't wait to do it. We were even used the same studio with LA Talk Radio. I was back there in the day in the 90s, and he's doing it now, and he has a show that's every week, and you're going to want to check that out. Whew. I'm losing my breath because I'm so excited, and so I can't wait to. Kelly, I can't wait to just hear your story. One of the things that I love to do, and you can take as much time as you want to, is allow our guests to tell where they came from, because it helps sometimes. People get to hear what you do and they get excited about what you talk about, but sometimes it just goes further if they know who you are. And I think we have that opportunity today to find out a little bit about who you are. The plan for this show is 1 hour. But I have a feeling we might end up doing 2 shows just because I think we probably have a lot to talk about. So we'll see where it goes. Thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time. I'm sure it's cold up there in Canada right now. What I can say here in Denver is it's insane. It's like 72 degrees today, and it's going to be like 75. And this is December 23rd, and I guess they're telling us this is going to be the hottest Christmas Day in the history of Denver, Colorado. It's supposed to be like 78 on Christmas Day, which is
it's cold here. It's below zero, so it's 2 or 3 degrees below zero Fahrenheit.
Yeah. So global warming isn't hitting you yet, but I guess it's hitting us here in Colorado.
Well, it's cold up here. It has been quite cold for the last 10 days.
Oh, so Yeah. Well, go ahead and tell us all about you and who you are and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll chop it up after that. But again, thank you for being part of Living Boldly with Purpose.
Well, thank you. The first thing I want to do is I want to honor you, and I'd like this to be on the episode, because doing a podcast and the work that you're doing is a labor of love, and it takes dedication and commitment, and I honor that. You're adding good to the world in a way that is valuable and unique to you and comes from your own life journey and story. And so one of the books, you mentioned I've written a lot of books. One of them that I've written is called The Story Arc, and it's about how to mine the story of your life. How do you dig into the story of your life to find out what really matters so you can do something good with it, as well as serve people and make money? So that's one of the fun things I love doing right now, is helping people find their stories. So, and then write them and do something with them. I was born in San Francisco, raised in the Bay Area, and had what looked like outside kind of a normal life, but it wasn't really. I had an upbringing that was very strict, discipline that today would be, felony child abuse, that kind of stuff. And what it left me believing, even though I was blessed with talents and gifts like everyone is, I left home at 17 believing that I was not good enough, and I never would be, and I needed to prove that I was. And so the way that translated into my life is I felt like I was always behind, and I was trying to prove something. And there was this conflict in me that rebelled against, the idea of how I'd been raised, but at the same time, I felt like I had to prove something. So I struggled with depression, and nobody knew or talked about it then, right? So you didn't get help, and you didn't do anything about it. You're just supposed to suck it up and live. And so what happened is I left home at 17, and for the next 35 years, till I was 52, I lived this roller coaster of alternating between trying to prove I was okay, and that was, get a job, get up in companies, get corporate, do that old song and dance, and sabotaging myself because I didn't deserve the success. So that circle of insanity went on, and I call it a roller coaster because I would build success and then I would intentionally do something to ruin it. I would get fired or I would break some rules, and I did it on purpose. And I did that with relationships too. I didn't mean to at the time. I wasn't thinking I'm setting out today to be a jerkwad, but it just turned out that way over and over and over again. And so by the time I was 52, the summer of 2007, that was the year I turned 52, I was single again for the third time. So I had been married and divorced 3 times. And I know it takes 2 to tango, but most of the relationship failures were, my fault. At that same time, I had 4 teenage children living with me. I had 10 kids, and 4 of them were living with me as a single dad. I was back on top again. I was making boatloads of cash again, and I was a drug addict. I was using about $3,000 a week worth of cocaine and other drugs. So, and I was making enough money that didn't matter, although I knew I was a disaster. The other thing that 2 weeks before something, I'm leading up to something that happened in August of 2007, I attempted suicide for the second time. So my life was this conflict of I'm supposed to be okay, I'm supposed to prove something, I'm supposed to do something, and hating myself for all my failures because I blamed myself for everything that had gone wrong all over and over again, and it got to be where there was no way out, and so that led to the darkness that led to a couple of suicide attempts. And so that's who I was in August of 2007, 18 plus years ago. And then a divine intervention invited me to consider something new. And what happened was, I didn't tell you a lot of details about the 35 years, but it was just that continual cycle of building and self-sabotage. Anyway, I came home from work on a Friday night, ready to go out and party for the weekend. My kids were all, the 4 that were with me were all teenagers. 3 were grown up and married, and 3 were with my 3rd ex-wife. And so, which is a disaster to say, but it's true. Anyway, all of a sudden I felt this urge to turn on the television. Now that doesn't sound like anything except I didn't watch TV. And I had bought the biggest, coolest stuff that you could buy because I made a lot of money and I had 4 teenagers and we were the party house. So there it is. And I picked up the remote and realized I didn't know how to turn on the TV. So I asked my 16-year-old daughter, and she punched some buttons and, threw the remote at me, dipweed. And, it landed on a program I'd never heard of called Intervention. Now, it may not still be on, but what that is a reality TV show about families who stage professional interventions with busted loved ones. And so this guy, and the protagonist was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. So I watched about 10 minutes of my life, and I thought, I'm not watching this crap. And I turned it off, and I went and did a few things. And then I was ready to go out to party, and I had this undeniable urge to turn the TV back on. So this time I knew how, and that program started over. And no, it wasn't on the schedule, and no, I didn't have a recorder, and no, it can't do that, but it did. So it freaked me out, so I thought I better watch it. So I watched it, and it went badly. The guy yelled at his family and swore he didn't have a problem and yelled at the counselor and stomped out of the intervention. So it went badly, but it freaked me out, just the whole situation. So instead of going out to party, I went to bed. When I went to bed, I went to hell. And what I mean by that is I went somewhere that was out of body. I was in a theater-type room where there was a stage and I could hear voices. And the scenes on the stage were all scenes out of my life all of them focused on suffering, the suffering that had been inflicted on me as a kid growing up, the abusive stuff, up to and including the suffering I had inflicted on everybody else as a lousy partner, a drug addict, a pathological liar, and all the rest of the things that had become my life. It went on for a really, really long time, and watching it was unbearable. I have no language to describe the emotional and spiritual torture that I felt. But anyway, after a while, I heard a voice, a long while, to my right and behind me say 3 words. It is enough. I woke up and I was really confused. I was upside down and backwards in bed. I was laying in a puddle, like the sheets were so wet you could wring them out. And I don't, to this day, know why, but the only thing I can think of was the intensity caused me to sweat like literally liters, quarts of water. But the thing that really freaked me out was the sun was shining in the windows, and the windows faced west. And I got up and realized it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So I'd been somewhere for nearly 18 hours. Wow. And I got up and realized 2 things. I said, okay, I've been invited to change. I have no idea what to do, where to go, who to talk to, how to start, like none, because I hadn't really done anything. But I knew one thing. I said, okay, I'm done. So I threw away $1,000 worth of substances I had laying around, because I always did, and I quit cold turkey that day. Now, that got me sober, but it didn't do anything about how I got there, which was the self-loathing and self-sabotage and depression and all that. Yeah. But that was only half of the divine intervention. So Monday, I went back to work knowing that I had to, I would get away from everything. I knew I had to start over, but I didn't, one thing at a time, right? So because of the position that I had, I used to get free stuff from CEOs and leaders of other companies because I made decisions that sometimes affected their companies to the tune of maybe billions of dollars. So I used to get lots of free stuff, not bribes, but, be nice to Kellan stuff. Tickets to this concert and free expensive bottles of booze, that kind of stuff. And one of the things I got was a pair of tickets to see a Yo-Yo Ma concert. Now, if you know classical music, you know who that is. And if you don't, you don't. But in the classical world, he's a cellist. It's like, ah! So I was really excited, and I thought, I'm going. But I don't have anybody to take because, no, we're not doing that. So I asked in the groups that I managed who likes classical music. And there was a woman in one of the groups that said, well, I do. And I said, have I ever given you anything before? Because I gave away stuff all the time. And she said, no. I said, okay, fine. See you there. So I gave her the ticket. A couple of weeks later, 2.5 weeks or so, we met at the venue. Concert was spectacular. And as of that night, now, of course, I'm just about 3 weeks stone cold sober. And at the in the middle of the concert, I had this feeling that came over me that I recognized from 3 weeks before. And this voice said, you need to marry this woman. And I said, you're freaking insane. I said, I've done that 3 times, and I don't know how to do it. I'm a disaster. Yeah. Besides that, I'm all of 3 weeks sober. I said, this is nuts. No.
Yeah.
So later that night, we were backstage because they were backstage passes and tickets to the reception and the whole 9 yards. And the voice came back and said, and you need to tell her tonight. And I thought, okay, there's a real problem here. Number one, I don't know her well enough to know whether or not she's in a relationship. Like, I didn't think she was married, but I didn't know about her relationship. The other thing is, she could call the cops or HR or harassment or something. I said, no. And, but you don't win those arguments. So I did, and it went about like you would have expected. She thought I was insane and, left. But the good news was she didn't call the cops or anybody. And the other piece of good news is she wasn't in a relationship. So about 3 weeks later, she had her own set of experiences. And I walked away from millions of dollars of contracts because I was a contractor. And she walked away from her whole career, and we walked off into the sunset. And this month, we'll celebrate our 18th wedding anniversary. And that, the story is amazing as it is. The fun part is her name is Joy. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And
No, it's so cool.
she was literally the angel that was sent with a
Mhm.
sole contract to help me learn how to be a person, to tell the truth, to how to have a friend, how to be a friend, all the things I never learned in my whole life, including being married 3 times. So the last 18 years has been spent, the first 3 years, 2 to 3 years was spent, in rehab and getting myself put back together with some counselors and learning to tell the truth and be vulnerable and figure out that I wasn't going to die under a bridge because I wasn't going to do that and all kinds of stuff. And the last 15 years have been spent, as I began to heal, I realized, okay, all these experiences, I could help people with this.
Yeah.
Like, these things I can help. And what I notice over and over again is that when people go through difficult things and they come out the other side and they're not ruined, that this yearning to serve rises up in us. We want to serve, and so we're divine beings built to love and serve, but it really wells up, in us, and it happened to me. And so I started thinking, how can I do that? What does that look like? And I thought of, well, maybe that's like coaching. What is that? So I researched that, and and then I also started writing books. So for the last 18 years, 15, since I got done with my own personal work, I've been an author and coach, and I have clients around the world. And my purpose this year, my year starts October 14th. And the reason that it starts October 14th is because that's Joy's birthday. So my year starts October 14th. And, well, when you're married to an angel, like literally she walks on water, there's no possible reason that she could have had to walk away from her whole career and to do this with someone that, I told her everything. It was literally 3 weeks sober, the kind of life I had. But she knew. I've asked her 1,000 times, what made you do that? And she said, I just knew that it was the right thing to do. So in these years, we have built, here's the thing to understand for living boldly with purpose. That was a wake-up call. We all have them. We mostly ignore the nudges and inspiration. Finally, it got loud enough that it was like a 2x4. I could have ignored that. I had so many hundreds of times before. Circumstances, invitations, situations. Finally, I said yes. So principle number 1 is, if you're going to live boldly, you got to say yes. You got to say yes to the intuition and the inspiration. I don't necessarily recommend people jump off the cliff and build their parachute on the way down. That was for me. I had to do that, but I don't necessarily recommend that. But you got to say yes. You got to say yes. And so in these 18 years, all I've done is write books, coach people, and help them live boldly, help them claim purpose, prosperity, and joy, take life in their own hands and live with fierce life ownership instead of blaming others. And my commitment this year is to reach and nurture 300 million people to understand and embrace the truth of their own worth, identity, possibility, ownership, and sovereignty, so that you, every one of you listening to this gorgeous man's podcast, can listen and take advantage of the opportunity to say yes to your own invitations and your own opportunity to live boldly and make the difference you want to make in the world. So there's more stories after that time, but that was the turning point.
Thank you for sharing that, because it's, when we try to find us, or we see a successful person and we try to see, okay, how do we relate to that person? How can I do what he does? It seems like he has this amazing life now. He's got this 18-year marriage with this woman that he adores. And people are going, well, how do I do that? How is that possible? And they can't see it from where they're sitting. What I'd love for you to do, just to talk a little bit about your identity shifts, because you talked about, growing up and not feeling like you're enough. And yet, even within that, as you leave at 17, you're able to grow a multi-million-dollar business while still having these feelings. But it still isn't enough, because then you'll use the substances as a way to cope. And then all of a sudden you have something in you that just snaps, and you say, wait a minute, it's enough. It's a divine dream. It's God saying, hey, we're getting ready to do a different life. Maybe just kind of talk us through this identity thing that I think a lot of us struggle with.
So here's the truth. In the weeks and months leading up to that thing in August of 2007, when I had attempted suicide, and I literally hated myself, and at the same time, I was performing at a high level. I was making money. I was a big shot. I was in the three-piece Armani downtown doing this and doing that. And it was just like a movie. On the one side, you look at it and you go, whoa, wow. And on the back side, it's like, oh, wow. You know, I was that guy. But I'm not alone, because there's so many people that hate their jobs. They go to work every day because they have to. They're working for the weekend. They don't feel fulfilled. They lose the relationship with their spouses, so they cheat or they get divorced or do whatever. And, you know, I know that because I done that before in my other relationships as a failure, because I didn't love me. I hated me. I was supposed to do all this stuff that I was raised to do, supposed to be a good guy, a good dad, and I wasn't, and I hated me for that. And at the same time, I had this desperate need to prove, so I kept building jobs. I mean, I got fired 3 times from high-profile positions, and then I would go build it again because I was trying to prove something, not because I loved it, not because I even needed to, but because it was the vehicle that I had to try to prove, but it never satisfied the feeling inside of I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. I don't belong here in this, you know, stratosphere of whatever it was, position or authority or whatever. I don't belong here. And so that caused me to sabotage it over and over again. And the key turning point is you have to learn to love yourself.
Yeah.
I loathed myself. I hated everything about me, everything I did, everything I stood for, everything I pretended. And one of the key pieces is nobody's perfect. And, you know, I viewed myself as the poster boy for somebody that should have been left at the bottom of the canyon. But even in that circumstance, the divine issued an invitation. And the invitation was, there's another way. It didn't fix me. I had to crawl over the broken glass. I had to get humble and vulnerable and go after it. And the key there was, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how many mountains I got to climb. I don't know how much broken glass I got to crawl over, but I'm going. End of story. I'm going. I've done this enough over and over again. It doesn't work. I hate me. I hate everything about me. I hurt people. I'm not doing that anymore. And so that firm commitment of I'm going no matter what it takes is the fundamental thing, along with learning to love myself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I think of the power of a decision, and I'm sure you've made tons of decisions in your life. What enabled you to make this decision that said, wait a minute, this is not going to happen anymore, and then just pushing through it? So it sounds like you've made some really good decisions throughout your life. And was it because the muscle just got there, and now when you made the decision, it happened? Because I think so many people put their toe in the water, right? They say they make a decision, but not really.
You're 100% right. And, you know, when I coach people, I'll ask them, well, what do you want? Or why are we talking? Why are we working together? And they want something. Maybe it's a better relationship. Maybe it's more money. Maybe it's a promotion. Maybe it's to stop disliking themselves or whatever it is. My first question is, how bad do you want it? Wow. How bad do you want it? And I don't care what the answer is. Mm-hmm. You can tell me whatever you want. But if it isn't like, I want it bad enough to do whatever it takes, then I'm not your guy. Go find somebody else. If you're just looking for somebody to empathize with you or to play games with you or to repeat the same week over and over again, go talk to somebody else. what gave me that authority, power, was I had lived all the other roads. I knew what waited for me. I have been there. I have done that. 2 weeks ago, I tried to kill myself. I know what that is. I am not doing that. And the invitation was so loud that it was like, okay, I don't know how, and I don't need to know how, but I'm climbing that mountain over here now.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, because I think that's a lot of how bad do you want it? You know, and some people think, well, I want it. Really? Okay, well, what are you willing to do in order to do it? I want to kind of shift gears a little bit, because I'm super interested in you as a dad and what it means to be a dad. And I know you said you were a single father, 10 kids, but it sounds like that might not have been tumultuous for them. I have 8 children, so I know they learn how to take care of each other as they get older. They just do, because there's so many of them. But for now, and I can imagine that relationship, who you've become in the last 18 years, there's probably some pretty good relationships with those kids now. And yeah,
I wish that were true. I will. I wish that were true. Several of them are still estranged and don't talk to me because of, 3 divorces and 3 failures, and because of, they saw firsthand my outward appearance. Like I was invincible. I could go do this stuff. I was making enough money that, we could have anything we wanted, and we did. Ski season passes, trips here, there. All that stuff was just like whatever. Yet on the inside, they knew what a disaster I was. And so there's, I don't have great relationships with all of them. With some, but certainly not with all of them. And that for a long time, that really, really hurt me, because I blamed myself. If I hadn't done this, then this, that, and the other. So we've come right to another key point. First is love yourself. Second is you have to decide how bad you want it. And if the answer isn't ride or die, go get on another train. Like this has to be what you're doing, especially when you're changing something that difficult, that's been a habit for a long time, no matter what it is. That's been your story of identity. I suck at this. I can't do this. I'm not. I'll never. When you're changing those kind of things, it's got to be blood on the floor, crawl over broken glass. I'm going. I don't care what it is. Like when the Olympics happen, you see these stories they play in between events of some Olympian, right? And they're up at 3 a.m. riding their bobsled and whatever the hell it is over and over again. You're going, yeah, that. Well, that's what it takes. The third thing is forgiveness.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
And this was so hard for me because I had been such a terrible dad. I had been, we were the party house. I was a disaster. And for a long time, I bought into the lie that everything was my fault, where some of my kids are in their 40s now. And they have the opportunity at any time to make choices about their lives and about the kind of things they want to keep in their lives and don't. And so I had to let that go, because when you don't forgive someone else and you hold a grudge, people say that's like, drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Well, that's about right. And if you don't forgive yourself, and I don't mean pretend mistakes away, but if you don't forgive yourself, all you do is limit your effectiveness and your ability to do good now, because you're carrying around rocks and pain that you can't fix or change. And so all you do is turn down your light, turn down the truth of your own reformation. If you have changed and you've grown and you hide because of shame or guilt, you just reduce the effectiveness of your own growth. So learning to forgive yourself, and of course, one of the 20-something books is Forgiveness, a journey of courage to a place of freedom and power. You have to. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to do jack. But if you want to fulfill that obligation or that you feel about living in service, then forgiveness is not negotiable. You have to do that.
You said the word pretend mistakes away. What is pretend mistakes away? What?
Well, what I mean by that is sometimes people hear the word forgiveness and they
Mhm.
think that means, oh, get over it. It's not a big deal. I'm not talking about that at all. You fix what you can. Okay. There's three parts to forgiveness. Part one is fix what you can.
Mhm.
And, for big things like lost trust and those kind of things, those you can't fix that anyway, but you do what you can. You fix what you can. The second part is you change who you are so
Okay.
that you're no longer the person that does that, that is that. So fix what you can, change who you are. And part three is add good to the world. Like go do good stuff. Go be that new person, all in with your light as bright as it can be in love and service. So fix what you can, change who you are, and then add good to the world. That's the
Gotcha.
key to forgiveness.
I love that. I love that. The other part about the relationships that you talked about is this incredible relationship that you've had for 18 years now, since that's with your wife. Three previous relationships that didn't work out. And was the biggest change you? And how is it that you love your wife in a way now that allows this relationship to flourish? And I don't necessarily need you to go back and compare all the other ones, but what was the biggest change? Because she's got to be an incredible woman. I can tell that, but it seems like a lot of this had to do with you.
100% had to do with me. 100%. It takes two to have a relationship or to fail. So I'm not pretending that away. But I have to say, I look at the arc of each of the previous relationships and I can see where the failures were on my side and on theirs. And I was not able to be married. I was not supportive. I didn't know how to care very much about what was going on with them. I had the attitude of taking care of somebody instead of being a partnership. Lots of things that I've learned to speak now that I understand that I didn't know how to do that. I grew up hating myself. I didn't, and doubting myself, and all of the things that go with that. Two of the three women I married were broken themselves. One was a child of an alcoholic stepdad and hadn't ever gotten therapy or help for that, so she had her own issues. But I didn't know enough about that to even know what that did. And I didn't find out. I didn't care. I knew about the situation, but it was like, yeah, just suck it up and fix it. And that was the second marriage. And the third one, her mom committed suicide when she was 12. And she was lied to about it till she was 21. And so she had abandonment issues and crap running out of her ears. But again, I didn't know how to help or be helpful with that. I didn't know how to be supportive. I didn't even begin to understand what that might do to a person. I was so wrapped up in my own brokenness that I didn't know how to be there for anybody. So the things that changed with Joy is she came from a very healthy upbringing, which was nice, but I didn't know any of that to start with. Literally, the divine intervention happened in August. The concert was in September that I told you about, and she moved in with me in October, and we got married in December. I mean, this was like right now. Do this now. And so it was like, okay. And when I resigned the position, and we hadn't really discussed firm plans yet, kind of the first part of October, we knew stuff was going on, but I went downstairs from turning in my resignation and leaving from all the stuff that I was doing. And I went in her office and closed the door. And I said, I don't know what you thought you were getting into, but I want to give you the chance to rethink all this because I just quit. And I don't know if I'm going to stay in the city. I don't know if I'm going to stay in the province. I don't even know if I was in Canada at the time. I don't even know if I'm going to stay in the country. So you may want to rethink all this. And I was giving her the opportunity to, she didn't blink. She looked right at me and said, I'm in.
Wow.
And so, she decided she was doing this. She decided. And I said, okay, if you mean that, then I'm not doing this again. For me, this is ride or die, baby. This is ride or die, because I'm not doing this again. And she just said, I'm in. So that level of commitment is first, and that's the foundation for us. And then she went about trying to help me get healthy. She said, I'm committed to this, so here's what we're doing. And she found people, and she looked up shrinks and found people. I think you'll like this guy. Try this guy. And so she was all in my growth and recovery. And so, I had to do the work. I had to go talk to people. I had to change who I was. I had to overcome, my struggles and get rid of the self-sabotage and deal with depression and bipolar, some shrink said, whatever, all the crap labels they give you. I had to do that. I had to do that. But she chose to support that, and I allowed that for the first time in my life. Okay, I said to myself, I am broken. I can't do this. I'm not going to stay here, but I do need this support.
As I think through it, I was just going in my head with some of the relationships that I know, or couples that have been together 50 or 60 years, but they argued for 50, 60 years, right? Or they were, and I think about, okay, if I'm going to continue my relationship in a way that is going to be edifying to my wife and to myself at the same time, and then we can grow together, then I have to make some, I don't necessarily call them sacrifices at all. I call them I just have to make some decisions that these are some things that I'm going to do because I love her. Well, what is there one or two things that as you learned about yourself and you created these habits that you do?
So you couldn't be a better straight man. There's two important things that I've done in the last 18 years. One is I created a document. I call it a personal truth and commitment document. It's not for public distribution. It's not for anything. I finally wrote a book about it called Living with Purpose and Power, because it is literally it's a constitution between me and God. This is who I am. And it's that agreement. I don't need anybody's agreement. I don't need anybody's permission. I don't need to sound good or true or right for anybody else. Screw that. This is who I am because I said so. This is what we're doing. All right. So that was the first thing. The second thing is it's hard, but not impossible to create that kind of a document. And when I work with people, I have them do that sort of thing. And lots of people will say, oh yeah, I went to a Tony Robbins event or this or that, or read a book and I wrote a thing. I am a charitable, loving, blah, blah, blah. And they give me some sentence after they go look up on their computer. And I ask them this. I say, well, how do you use that document? Well, I don't. I have it here. And, I read it sometimes or not at all or whatever. And here's what I say. If you have something and it isn't memorized and woven into your DNA, and you don't use it every morning in your mirror, in your eyes, and when you do, it makes you weep, you haven't said anything yet. So throw it away and start over. Yes. We're talking about that. So the second thing is, even if you create something that powerful that lights the walls on fire, it's useless unless you use it every single day. So I spend 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours every day in what I call a daily creation process. Most people just go into their lives, read the phone, drink some coffee, do whatever, and they don't create themselves. Well, can you imagine an Olympic athlete warming up after the event? Like what?
Yeah.
That's the stupidest thing I've heard. So I create myself literally and powerfully every day with the words in the document, with sacred literature, with prayer, with meditation, with some exercise. But I create me in exactly how I choose to be. And again, it's not for anybody else. Nobody's agreement. This is who I have chosen to be. So I create that. Now, about the rituals with my wife, 4 of the words in that document are these. I am that I love joy with everything that I am. Joy is the love of my life and my eternity. I love the grace, beauty, and brilliance that is joy with all my being. Joy is my song, my balance, and the light in my heart. And that is fundamental truth. And so every speech, every word, every thought, every interaction goes through that filter because I said so.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's it. I mean, that tells you exactly why it's successful. And the things that we say we don't have time for. Somebody told me they had a long day the other day, and I'm like, was it longer than mine? Because we all have the same 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
100, 1,400 minutes, whatever it is. But if you choose to do the things that you're saying and you're creating yourself on a daily basis, you can't fail. Your body, your mind, everything else won't allow you to fail. When I think about connection, and that's why we're on this here planet, right? I believe we're on the planet for connection with others, and we get caught up in the things we do and the job we do and how we got to run around and do stuff. But ultimately, everything we do is for this purpose of connection. And now we have this thing, whether it's AI or whatever it is, that is a distraction to our connection. What are some things that, as you're writing your books and you're talking, and I can tell you're huge on connection and making sure you have those relationships. How do you make sure that those relationships stay strong, whether it's your wife or kids or other folks, and I guess the distractions that can take over folks? Because I can tell in your early life you were pretty distracted with a whole bunch of stuff.
Mostly with internal nonsense, but you're right.
Okay.
So part of my morning creation process, I use the acronym SPEM. SPEM stands for spiritual, physical, emotional, mental. And I do something in each of those categories so I connect with spirit. And I don't leave my morning devotional process until I've heard the voice of God and I'm connected. P is physical. I do some, like I have a deteriorated disc, so I now walk with a cane, but I don't care. I did martial arts for a lot of years. I do stretches. I do whatever to honor the body. The E is emotion, and I include all my relationships in that. So what I'll do after I've done those is I'll pick up my phone and I'll thumb quickly, not the news, not emails, through Messenger or WhatsApp, and by inspiration, I will send messages of love to people. I'm thinking about you. I love you. We haven't talked for 6 months. Tell me how you're going. Last time we talked, you said this, that, and the other. How's that doing? And I just do it. And I usually send voice messages. And I do that instead of text because I have been blessed. I've been blessed with the voice.
There you go.
It's powerful. And people say it. I thought I didn't really think about it so much until one day I sent a message. Somebody friended me on Facebook, right? And so if I look them over and I look at their profile and see that they're legit, whatever, and if I think it's useful, I'll connect. And then I always send a message. And I send a voice message. And so I send them a message, thanks for connecting. What made you do that? What can I do for you? That kind of thing. And I got a message back, and it was a voice message, which was unusual. And the voice message came back, and the first 2 words were, "that voice." And so after I heard that, I thought, okay, cool. I'm using it. I'm good. Yeah. So that's E. And then the M of mental is I have a stack of about 2 stacks of about 30 books over there that I'm in the middle of all the time. And I do something to, my mind, my growth. It's stuff about coaching. It's stuff about marketing. It's stuff about growing. It's stuff about whatever. But it's intentionally so that I am created the best way I can be before I get the blessing of talking to Dr. B.
I mean, the one thing I'm getting out of this is intentionality, that you have decided that you're going to be intentional about life and nothing else is going to stop you from doing that. And the distractions can't come in because you're intentionally creating your day every single day. I mean, I haven't heard you talk about, my calendar that I got to make sure that I do. And I'm sure you have one and you got dates and things you do. And I haven't heard you, talk about all the goals that I have to make that and maybe talk to me a little bit about goals, because when I think about goals, there's so many things that people give me all the time that this is my goal. None of it they can control. Hey, I want to have 100,000 subscribers on my channel. Really? Okay, so you can control the activity, you can control the intentions, you control the things that you do, but God has to take care of the rest. And I think that's how you live, right?
It is, and I use both. So
Okay.
I have goals. I just told you this year, from last October to next, I'm going to nurture 300 million people to embrace the truth of their own worth, identity as a divine being, possibility, which is infinite, ownership, and sovereignty. I don't know all the activities that I have to do that. So I write books. I've been on 700 or 800 podcasts like yours. I have 1,000 of my own. I have LA Talk Radio. I speak at lots of events. Just in New Orleans speaking at an event, a couple weeks ago. I'm already got some booked for January. I love bringing people on my shows because it isn't just me. I want to spread messages. I want to share people's experiences. And so I don't know all the activities. And it's hard to measure numbers that big. You just have to look at audiences and do the best you can.
Yeah.
But even though I have that number, my activity commitments are I open my eyes in the morning at 5. I do my morning ritual and create myself. And then from morning to night, first breath to last, I am Kellan. I am the ultimate alchemist. I am the husband of an angel. I am reaching to your audience today to love them. Like when I spoke in New Orleans, after I talked to the audience a little, I had like 45 minutes. I spoke about 20 minutes, and then I said, I want you to each to understand something. And because of the way I interact with audiences, you could have heard a pin drop. And they looked at me, and I said, I want you to know that I love you, and you can't do a damn thing about it.
I love it. That's so cool.
And it's true, and they felt it. You could feel the energy. And that's because that's who I choose to be. And in that method, I choose to reach those goals or try to do everything I can to do it. And you're right. People tell me as a coach all the time, I want this, that, and the other. And I ask them, what do you want? What's it worth to you? I'll do anything. Okay, cool. Here's 5 things to start with. Oh, man, I didn't know I had to do that. And so it's like, I don't care. There's no skin off my nose. But if you want this, there is a road from here to here. And the only question is, do you want to walk it?
Do you have I know you talked a lot about what you do when you get up in the morning and the 2 hours you do. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people that I've known, and if success leaves clues, is almost everybody I know who's super successful or feel, is, and I guess that term is relative, what success means, but they have something they do at night before they go to bed. There's a routine that goes there, and we don't talk about that a lot. We talk about, hey, this is what I did to get going in the morning, but I think so much is intention on, like, I don't know what you did before you had that incredible dream, but what are the things that you do now that make sure you're set up so that when you do get up, you're ready to go?
So I love you for asking that. Thank you. I review the day. I mark it as did I do what I said? I am who I seem. One of my PTAC statements is I am my word. I speak only truth. I do what I say. I am who I seem, with no camouflage, duplicity, or guile. And again, that's because I said that's who I am. So I review that. Was I in integrity today? Is there anything I need to clean up? And when I finish that, and if there's something I need to clean up, I put it in tomorrow or whatever. And if there's not, then I pray. I kneel down by the bed and I pray. I review the day. I say what I did. I, apologize and ask forgiveness if I need to. And then I go to bed with full confidence that I've been heard, that I'm doing the things that I should. And then I have a breathing routine that literally puts me to sleep in under 5 minutes.
Wow. So neat. One of the things you just brought up that I think is so important that we continue to talk about is being congruent with the promises that we keep to ourselves. We make so many promises to ourselves, and we're the only people in the world with that little voice that talks to us that knows all the promises we didn't keep. And it's almost, to me, a muscle that once you make one promise, then you have to make another one. And so much at this time of year, because we're filming this right at Christmas, and people are going to do all these New Year's resolutions. They're going to make 1,000 promises of all the things that they're going to do, knowing that they're not capable, that muscle has not been developed to be able to keep those promises. And then they, 3 weeks later, they're back to the way they were because the promises or the habits that they created aren't congruent. And so how did you develop this? If my word is my bond, I'm keeping the promises that I keep to myself. Every single day you go to bed reevaluating, did I keep those promises? Because it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, right?
There's in my work, and especially writing as many books as I have, I develop phrases and I call them $1 billion secrets. And people laugh at that, thinking you're exaggerating or making stuff up. And I'm going to give you one of them right now. This is literally worth $1 billion. And if you do this, learn this thing I'm going to share with you right now in your life, you can have or create anything you want.
Okay.
And here's the foundation of it.
All right.
You are so right. We lie to ourselves like breathing. We promise we're going to do something when we only half intend to. We promise stuff when we don't even intend to. We promise things to end a conversation. We promise things to get people out of the way. We do all that. And every time we do that, we teach ourselves we cannot be trusted.
Oh.
We teach ourselves we can't be relied on. Even if nobody else knows, we know. And so here's the phrase. I said it, I did it. That's it. And here's what I mean by that. You start paying attention right this minute to every word that comes out of your mouth. And if you're making a commitment of any kind, of any size, especially ones to yourself. People say, well, I keep my word to others, but myself, I suck. That's backwards.
Yeah.
Your word to yourself is most important because you teach yourself that you're a liar and you can't be trusted. So here's what I say to people. Well, I set goals and I'm going to try really hard. Shrink the damn goals.
Mm-hmm.
Shrink
Amen.
the damn goals until I said it, I did it is true. And when I said it, I did it becomes the truth of your being, you can have anything you want. It's easy to grow your promises. It's easy to grow your goals. Making promises, having too long of a to-do list, and then failing day after day, all that does is beat the shit out of your self-esteem, put you behind the 8 ball, and make you feel over and over and over again. I said it, I did it. I promise you, if you master that truth, you can create anything you want. And the way to do it is to shrink the goals until I said it, I did it, is the truth of your life.
Wow. Oh my gosh. $1 billion secret. That is, I love that we just said it that way. I said it, I did it, it's true. Oh my gosh. I said it, I did it, it's true. Oh, thank you so much. Hey, I have been so selfish in asking all the questions I want to know. Is there anything that you want to make sure that this audience gets? I can't wait for these clips to come out. I can't wait for people to watch this. I can't wait for me to re-listen to this over and over again. It's been so many great gems. What didn't I talk about? What did you want to make sure that we like I said, we don't have enough time for just today, but we're going to come back. But yeah.
Here's some things I want you guys to walk away with.
All right,
one of the most important things to do is to learn to love yourself. For crying out loud, I don't care where you've been or what you've done, learn to love yourself. Because if you don't, you can't accomplish anything. The second thing is if you want any of the things that I've talked about, there's a website, Kellan Fluckiger Media. And you do have to spell my name right. KellanFluckigerMedia.com, and all the books that I've written and the podcast and all that stuff is there if you want. This one right here, KellanFluckigerMedia.com. Okay, if you go there, there's a contact form if you'd like to talk. If you have questions, books are there and everything else. So go there. The third thing I want to say is I don't care where you've been and I don't care what's happened before now. It is never too late to matter and create big impact if you choose right now to serve with the purpose that you choose, with your own chosen purpose. Like I started when I was in the year I turned 52. Okay, I didn't start young. I started old. I lived with decades of negative patterns and things reinforced. And I made a decision to change. And I've had to remake that decision 1,000 times because distractions and it's hard and the mountain's too high and there's too much broken glass. That comes up for everybody, me too. So you have to decide. And so love yourself. Get the help you need. That was key for me. Learn to forgive yourself, right? Because nobody's perfect. We're all people having a human journey. And if you carry that baggage, you'll never make it. You'll never be the person and create the contributions you could make. So the last thing I want you to know is that, I told that audience that I love them and I want you guys to know I love you. You can't do anything about it. I do. I know you. We didn't tell the story about my dying in 2018, which was 11 years after the other thing. I actually died. I flatlined in the ICU here in the University of Alberta Hospital. I had a fatal illness and died and had 3 conversations with God at the door between life and eternity. And that's another entire story about why and what happened and all the rest. But point is, I know who you are. You're a divine being. You have gifts, you have talents, you have a mission, you have purpose, you matter. You can either ignore that or you can say to yourself, this is your wake-up call.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You got the website. I'm not even going to try to say your last name, but just copy whatever here on the top. Man, this has been so enlightening for me. I can't wait to go back and listen to it. I can't wait to go back and take notes. One thing that I learned that I always try to watch these podcasts and then try to memorize everything somebody's saying and forgot that there's a pause button. Just if somebody says something, you just hit the pause button, write it down, make it part. Because there's some things that if you go do, I said it. To most of me, that's the most important thing. I said it, I did it, and it's true. If you can just live that out in your life, if you can start that process, if this is your first podcast, this was a treat for you. We have lots of them. Go ahead and subscribe and notifications. Kellan's got a show that he does every Tuesday night. He has a podcast that you can get into. I just went to his website. There are so many things on this website that you have access to that you can do. If you're truly wanting to change who you are and to become the person that God put you on this earth to do, it's up to you to start it. It's up to you to get it going. It's you to make that decision, not the pretend decision that we talked about earlier, the actual decision, and go make it happen. We believe in you. We know you can do it. I love you. Kellan loves you. There are people that are in your corner. You have an amazing God. I tell everybody at the end of my show that you are God's greatest gift. He loves you. But the second part about that is he put you on this planet so you can be an answer to somebody else's prayer. And we all are an answer to somebody else's prayer. And that's a great responsibility. I think like Spider-Man, right? With great, with great responsibility or great power comes great responsibility. Kellan, do you have just one final thought for us before we leave today? And I can't wait to get together with you and do some more stuff and have some more podcasts. And I think our friendship is just getting started. So
I'm wonderful and I'm open to that. So the final thing I would hear you is please don't hear this and then think, I ought to do some of that. And then go back to life. Just start now. Start with a small thing. Whatever one thing, pricked you, stuck in your mind. Like, I could do that. I need to do that. Do it. Pick one thing. Like, people sometimes get the idea that you have to change everything all at once. You can't. If you change your direction 1%, if you get 1% better today, and you keep doing that in 3 months, by the 1st of April, March 31st, you'll be 100% better. Like the clock and that calendar goes by, just go 1% today and 1% tomorrow. But you got to start, not think about it anymore.
Got to get started. Thank you for being on. Thank you for just the time you spent. It has been a huge blessing. You guys have an amazing, awesome, incredible day. We will talk to you on the next.